Caches have been used throughout history to store items that are impossible to carry or inconvenient to carry off-site in a safe location. Caches are used to store redundant items for your core kit that you absolutely cannot be without, as well as bulkier or more long-term items. Bulkier items would be something like winter boots, a winter coat, maybe a sleeping bag, maybe a tent instead of just using a lean-to like is standard with a lightweight bug-out type bag. Longer term tools might also be a good thing to cache. That would be like a full-size axe instead of a pack axe like a lot of us carry. Extra saw blades, a bit and a brace. Longer term maintenance to make yourself a longer shelter would be something I would consider caching. So you can look throughout history and find examples where weapons, food, Bibles, anything of that nature is usually the first thing seized. So that's what people want to hold on to. That makes an excellent thing to cache for a long-term situation. You can also look at bugging in to an urban situation, which is something I personally am not going to do. I do not plan on staying in an urban situation. But most of World War II was fought using caches. Weapons, food, radios, any contraband that was stolen from the enemy was often cached. That's how civilians were able to wage war versus armies. So keeping this in the context with urban survival, caches should be something that would be laid out along your bug out route. My trip, my daily route from work to home is about 40 miles. So that's a 2-day trip for me. I cannot do 40 miles in a day. I know at some point I'm going to have to stop. So somewhere along that 20-mile range, and it would probably be a lot better if I could do 10, 20, and a 30. I should have caches, multiple caches in case I'm not able to get to one, or if one is compromised, or if one was inaccessible due to a natural occurrence like a flood. That would be where I would want to place out items just to get me home. One of the most important things about selecting a cache is going to be the container that the cache is going to go in itself. Certain things can actually be hidden in plain sight. You don't always have to think that you have to dig a giant hole and bury it. That is an option. That's a pretty good option, but there are natural holes that you can use. There are structures all around in an urban setting. If you can get into any abandoned buildings, a lot of interior doors are actually hollow. There's hollow spots between walls. Blocks in basements or blocks in outbuildings a lot of times are an option. Abandoned cars. There's all kinds of options that you can stash a location, but you're going to want to make sure that the items are in some type of waterproof container. So if it's a crush resistant box or case, that's all the better, but my main concern is going to be waterproof. If I've got something that's important enough for me that I make a cache ahead of time and I want it to be there when I absolutely need it, I want it to be dry and in one piece when I get there. So cache containers come in two sizes, too big and too small. They're too small when you're trying to pack enough gear in them, and they're too big when you're trying to dig a hole to actually bury the thing. So there's some great options that I don't have here. Probably like a peanut butter jar, a plastic peanut butter jar is freaking awesome. That's a great size. You can get a lot of gear in there. Another thing that I've used in the past is coffee cans. A coffee can, you can wrap it in drum liners, you can wrap it in a giant Ziploc bag, tape it into a nice solid ball, and that thing is good to go. So starting with the too big, I've got a 55-gallon plastic drum here. You can use metal drums, plastic drums, you don't have to worry about rust. There is no way I'm going to have a 55-gallon drum on my bug out location for an urban survival kit. If I, for some reason, had to live in an apartment and maybe I could stash something like this in a park or in federal lands or in an abandoned lot, that would be the only case I would consider something like this. I could camp for a long time out of this much gear. This would be great if you were in a wild swing for seasons like we are here with the weather. So I could have winter boots, winter gloves, a hat, a winter sleeping bag, a full-size tent. You would really be rocking it out if you were able to secure something like this for a cache. This would be great, again, in a bug-in situation in the city, but as well if you had an alternate bug-out location and you were going to a cabin. As nice as this is, and as nice as it would be to have that much gear with you, I hope you got a shovel, and I wouldn't want to carry this thing empty, let alone full of gear. This is something that you're going to want to have once and maybe take it out in pieces. Maybe something where you would have a lot of food stored and you would pull it out a little bit at a time. But again, for the urban situation, if you were going to bug in, then I would have to work something like this into my system. I don't have one here in front of me, but a 5-gallon bucket with a Gamma Seal lid would make an excellent vessel to cache items in. I've used them for canoe trips in the past. They are 100% waterproof, they're crush proof, they're cheap, they've got a handle so they're easy to carry. And when I accessed my cache, I could carry a 5-gallon bucket around without looking completely out of place. If I'm rolling around a 55-gallon drum, you're gonna pretty much draw a lot of attention. So along those same lines as a 5-gallon bucket or the 55-gallon drum, PVC makes an excellent way to cache items. So this is 6-inch PVC, and I think this is maybe an 18-inch long piece. These caps need to be glued into place to make it 100% waterproof. This is designed to be buried forever. So this is not something you got to worry about leaking. This is not something you have to worry about it crushing. This is inexpensive. You can buy a 10-foot stick of the PVC and a whole bunch of caps, and you can have caches all over. The whole point of this is to not just have one and all your eggs are in one basket. So you could have several of these spread out all around. So this 6-inch PVC, I went with 6-inch because this fits in my GoRuck bag. A 6-inch pot fits in there just fine. A bush pot is 6 inches, so most backpacks that you're going to have are going to be able to accommodate a 6-inch piece of PVC. And I think this is about 18 inches, maybe just a little bit under. Again, this will completely zip into my bag. This is because I want to be low key and I want to be low profile. There is no low profile once we start getting into the big ones like this. So this holds a lot of gear. This is nothing to trifle with. The only issue is if you glue this up both ends and make it watertight, you're not going to be able to get in this easily. You might want to maybe take a hacksaw, wrap it in plastic, grease it up, and just take the hacksaw blade and maybe tape it to the PVC. That would probably be your best bet to get into the PVC pipe easily when you actually need the gear and have to dig it up. So the 6-inch is my favorite size by far. Just to show options here, I've got a 2-inch as well, and this is capped. And remember, we're talking volume here. So this is, I think, maybe a 3-foot stick. So you can hold a lot of stuff in here. You're limited by what fits in the 2-inch opening. But as far as volume goes, you can get a lot of ramen noodles in a 36-inch piece of 2-inch PVC. So another great option is a steel ammo can. This is like caching 101 right here. These things are 100% waterproof. They're sealed up, they're crush proof, they're inexpensive, and they hold a lot of gear. The square boxes like this, I always prefer them to anything round. The PVC, if you have that in your vehicle, or if you're thinking I'm going to store items in here in a vehicle kit, they roll all over. It's a big pain. You've got nice square corners to pack in an ammo can like this, so this is a premium way to make a cache. So life does have its trade-offs. One of the disadvantages to this is it's military looking and it's going to draw attention. So you could definitely repack this and put it in your backpack if you accessed your cache and were leaving with it. But if you're seen carrying around an ammo can, chances are they think you're going to have a gun, and they're probably going to think they know you got gear. So this is definitely something that you would want to conceal up and not be seen just casually walking around with a steel ammo can. So those steel ammo cans actually are getting a little more difficult to find. This is like a Walmart plastic container here. So they make inexpensive watertight boxes like this. I wouldn't call this crush proof, but if this was a Pelican brand, it would pretty much be crush proof. So it all depends on the importance to it. I mean, if I've got Snickers bars and a Bic lighter and a $10 knife in here, I don't need it to be in a $150 case to make sure it's going to be secure. So remember, you can also hide items in plain sight. This is probably the coolest looking cache. This is something geocachers use. So I cross-train, I look in other genres to find something that I can use in the bushcraft survival world. So they hide geocache stuff in false bottoms of this. So this birdhouse is built with barn siding. So this is something you might see for sale on Etsy, or you might see it on Pinterest or something, and it looks all cool. And if you were carrying this around and nailed it up to a tree in a park along your bug out location, I don't think anybody's going to say anything about it. In my personal area, there are birdhouses that the state puts up. So if I had one that was brand new shiny wood, it might stick out. This one, if I put it in off one of the main trails, it would probably just be assumed that it was forgotten about. I guarantee a bird would be in this thing in no time, but this is different. This is a survival birdhouse. So this birdhouse actually has a false bottom on it. There is room for the birds, so we are helping the planet, but the main thing with this birdhouse is it's going to help me out too. If I was putting this together with screws right now, make sure, like if you carry a Leatherman or if you carry a Swiss Army knife like I do, that it's flathead screws. You don't want to screw this thing nice and tight with Phillips and then not have a Phillips screwdriver to get it out. However, this barn siding is probably 100 years old, and I would have no problem smashing it open to get the contents out if I really need it. So the bottom of this birdhouse actually comes out, and tell me this ain't the coolest thing you've ever seen. I have a 6-inch ferro rod. I've got a Mora Basic, and I've got a big hank of paracord here. Now you could get silly in this thing and you can pack a lot more in it, and in this case this is not waterproof. I would put everything in a Ziploc bag, seal it up, and put it in there and call it good. If you are traveling on minimal equipment and you find your ferro rod, I've got some tinder here as well, some jute twine. If I've got a ferro rod, a carbon steel knife, and a hank of paracord, you're smoothing it at this point. This is something that you could put everywhere. You could put these along the road. You could put these in the woods at locations that are not likely to be encountered. So there's a lot of options with this. They look cool. They're actually functional. Birds can't live in here, but again, my main concern is I've got fire, I've got a cutting tool, and I've got cordage inside of a birdhouse that I can conceal in plain sight anywhere. So something like this is going to work fine submerged. You could tie rocks around it, you could find a designated spot, but you're going to want to use fixed landmarks. Luckily for you, this isn't at a random bug out location that you've been to twice before. This is your daily travel route. This is in an urban setting for me, and probably like most of you. We're getting home. That's my main concern. That's where all my good stuff is. So I drive past this. If they're starting to doze trees and it looks like, you know, an abandoned woodlot that I had a cache hidden is starting to get bulldozed and turned into development, I can either abandon it, which is probably a pretty good option, or I can move the dang thing. Fixed landmarks are important. So look for key features. Look for something where you can possibly triangulate your location. So if you had a giant rock and you had a peak of a mountain and you had a river as well, you can draw all these out, you can sketch them out, but you should be there enough and you should be comfortable enough in that area that you just know where they are. So the last thing you want to do is use a landmark that's just too common. You know, a car in a field next to a brown house, scrap prices go up, they haul the car away, and now you're kind of out of your landmark. So use something that's going to be prominent, use something that's going to be fixed in there forever, and use it in a location that you know like the back of your hand. So I showed you my bare minimum kit, which is going to be a fire, a cutting tool, and a little bit of cordage. You can do a lot with that, but when you get into the big 6-inch tubes like this and some of the other containers, you can put a lot of gear in here. It's actually amazing what you can get done with these things. So I've got this lid just slip fit on here, and this is not packed properly. I just started sticking some things that I had into a tube just to give you some idea. So you could do a lot better if you tried a little harder. But just to show you some of the ideas here, I mean, I showed you the ferro rod. I've got a lighter, I've got some matches, I've got cordage, I've got tinder, a survival candle. So a water filter is a key thing to have here. This is a Sawyer Mini, and I've actually got the plunger and one of the bags as well. And even if I was carrying one, this would be something I would carry a redundant of, and I would put a brand new water filter in here. Once they're wet, if they freeze, they could crack. So I would have a brand new water filter in here. Can't go wrong with cordage. So a flashlight and extra batteries is something that's highly important. A lot of the navigation is going to be at night just to avoid people. I assume I'm going to have a light on me. I can also assume the light's going to break or I'm going to run out of batteries. So to have a redundant light with spare batteries is going to be a key thing to have. So I've also got some 55-gallon drum liners in here. This is going to waterproof my gear. I can make shelters with this. So I make sure I always carry a legal knife with me. The last thing I need is to be hassled for having a 5-inch blade dangling around my belt. I'm low key, so I'm not going to have a knife visible, and I'm not going to have an illegal knife visible or on me at all. So in a cache location, as well as a vehicle kit, I carry a larger knife. So this is like a 6-inch here. So I'm sure most of you have multiple blades. This would be something where if you had a starter knife and you used it and you upgraded to a different one, rather than have 3 or 4 identical blades or nearly identical blades laying around, this would be a great thing to cache. This would be a treasure to have a full-size survival knife with you in an urban survival situation. So these last couple items are kind of cool. I have a Snug Pack jungle blanket in here, and actually sticking to it is a pot. So because this is 6 inches, I think this is out of an MSR kit. So this is an MSR pot. I think it's a nesting set. This is probably a smaller one. So this thing fits in here with no issue whatsoever. And a blanket like this, I don't think I could get a full-size sleeping bag in here in this kind of kit. If I went with more of a cold weather kit and I filled up 3/4 of this with a sleeping bag, that's probably a pretty good decision. So that's a lot of cool gear, and that will make you more comfortable and improve your survivability for sure. But you've got to remember, you're walking at this point. You're assuming things have gone extremely far south. So if you've ever done a 20-mile walk, that kind of wears on you as well. So one thing I make sure I would have is just a clean pair of socks. A clean base layer would be wonderful. You know, if I had a clean t-shirt, clean underwear, and clean socks, I'd be good for another 20 miles. But the socks are going to be critical with that. You got to keep your feet healthy or you're not going that far. So along those same lines, you got to think about self-aid. The first thing I would be reaching for is Tylenol and ibuprofen. After a 20-mile plus walk, to get up and do another one the next day, because remember, I'm 2 days out. I'm going to want some ibuprofen. I want some painkillers of any type. I would also want to have a small first aid kit. If I happen to cut myself or if I was developing a blister on my foot, I would want to have bandages or at least duct tape to get myself going down the road. Now, as far as food, there's several different ways to think about this. If we were making just a cache at a cabin, that's where I would want dried rice and dried beans and long-term storage items. I don't want dried beans on a 40-mile bug-out walk to get back home. I don't have the material, I don't have the water to soak them, I don't have all day to cook them. I want food that I can convert into quick energy. And the number one item in my book is going to be an MRE of some type. So the closer you can get to a legitimate military MRE, the better. This will fit in a 6-inch pipe with no issue. Most of the MREs are going to have a way to heat the meal, so there's a heater with them. You've got silverware, I've got drink mixes, I've got coffee, most of them have toilet paper. These aren't the best tasting items, but if for something that I have to pull out and just go with, all my meals are going to be on the move, this is absolutely perfect. If you go to the camp aisle to some of the freeze-dried foods, the Mountain House stuff or whatever is available is going to work out pretty good. This stuff is pretty good. It's a container on its own. If you can boil water, maybe in an improvised alcohol stove or in a debris stove of some type, this will get you by just fine. If you could not boil water, you could just rehydrate this and eat it. It wouldn't be the best thing in the world, but it would still be okay. Another option, probably more inexpensive option, because again, this is something you're going to bury or hide in a location and maybe never look at again. So some of these dollar rice meals or something is going to be higher in carbs. It'll get you down the road. The storage is going to be great on this, but this is a little bit longer cook time. This is, instead of rehydrating it, you actually have to roll a boil and hold it for a little bit of time. So completely serviceable, less than ideal, but better than nothing. Now in some of the bigger kits, you don't always have to be ultralight. You can go with just a can of soup or a canned ham, something of that nature. Make sure you have a can opener with you. Most of these are pop tops anymore, but again, that's why I kind of like a Swiss Army knife. If I was to encounter an older can, I can get through the thing and go just fine. But I've got a container. Most of these can be eaten cold. They're going to be better warm, but you're not out for a gourmet meal at this point. So just a word about tools real quick. I like inexpensive tools for this type of thing. I want quality tools that I can count on, but inexpensive is going to be key. You might want to consider adding something like this cold steel shovel. These things are actually kind of cool. I've got 2 of them. They throw like a tomahawk. They're pretty non-offensive looking. If I was to have a tomahawk in my vehicle and get pulled over by the police and they see it, it's probably going to at least be a question or 2 are going to be asked. This is just a shovel. This would work for defense. This would work for crafting, making a quick shelter. But again, what I'm looking at this for is to recover one of my caches. So if it's inside a block wall or inside a drywalled wall, I would use this like a hammer to bash through it. If it was buried, this is going to be a heck of a lot better than using a digging stick. So I hope none of you ever have to rely on cached items, but it just makes too much sense not to have them. Pick high quality, durable, inexpensive items, and it'll go a long way to improving your survivability in an urban survival situation.